Hey loves, it is the Saturday before Thanksgiving. I don't know about you, but it has been a crazy day. I'm sure your day is crazy too. We just got back from dropping off Gatsby, our golden doodle rescue, at the groomers, and our other rescue, Hazel, was crying the entire time, thinking God knows what. So like a baby, we had to drive her around for an hour to calm her down. I'm serious. And now she's finally calm, she's asleep. So now we can focus on pie. So I really wanted to make this video today because I know a lot of people are scared to attempt pie crust. And I get it. If you've never made it before, it can be a little intimidating. But I have friends who love to bake and even they won't make pie crust. So that tells me we need to have a conversation. We need to figure this out. So today we are going to talk about a few super simple tips on how to make this pie crust, and these tips will go perfect with any recipe that you're following. But if you're interested in my favorite recipe, I will link that below. And I would love to see your creations, so be sure to tag me on Instagram, that's also linked below. All right, let's go make some pie crust.
Trick number 1, grate your butter. You can of course use a food processor if that's easier for you, but I just prefer fewer dishes if I can help it. I really like grating the butter because I find that it just combines a lot better into the flour. If you cut your butter into chunks like a lot of recipes tell you to do, that's fine, but then you're also spending a lot of time trying to blend that butter into the flour with your hands. This just results in the butter heating up, which is the opposite of what we want. So grate your butter, easy peasy. We're going to let the butter and shortening chill in the freezer for 30 minutes before we begin mixing the rest of the dough. My dry ingredients were also chilling next to the butter and shortening in the freezer to help keep the temperature of the dough down as I begin to mix. I'm quickly breaking up the shortening into the flour and then adding the butter. Since we already grated the butter, you simply have to cup your hands as if you're going to splash the flour onto the butter. As you add your cold water, keep in mind how the dough should be feeling in your hands. The dough should still seem a bit dry, but you should be able to hold the dough into your hands without it completely falling apart when it's ready. When mixing the dough, spread your fingers out as if your hand is a whisk. This will help you incorporate more of the dough together with using less force. At this point, I'm going to put a little bit of flour on the table and then lightly pour out the dough onto the table. At this point, you're just going to very carefully fold the dough on top of itself. You're going to work it as little as possible so you don't develop too much gluten and make it tough. I added a little bit more water just because I felt like it was going to fall apart, but now it looks like it's staying together really nicely. So I'm just going to keep working it little by little until it seems like it's going to hold into a nice ball. Then I'll cover it in plastic wrap and let it chill in the fridge.
Stay. Stay.
Hi, Gatsby. Hi, buddy. All right, so our dough has been resting in the fridge for 30 minutes now. And the reason why we're doing this is because we really want the water to settle into the particles of the flour so we have a soft, beautiful texture. So now I'm gonna show you how I roll out the dough. As you can see, I have a wet towel on the table with a cutting board on top of that. It's really helpful to use a wet towel underneath your cutting board because it will secure the cutting board so it won't be sliding all over the place. Another really useful trick when rolling out your pie crust is to only work with a quarter at a time. Picture your circle of dough like a pizza. Gently roll up to the top, rotate the circle, begin in the middle again, and gently keep rolling. It's difficult to keep even pressure if you were to roll out the entire circle at once, so just work with little sections at a time.
As your dough gets larger, there's going to be tears and rips. Don't worry. The amazing thing about making a pie dough is that it's made for patchwork, so don't worry. The ideal size for your pie crust is going to be 2 inches larger than whatever pan you're using. Mine is 9 inches, so my circle is about 11 inches in diameter. The easiest way to transfer the dough to your pie plate is exactly what I'm doing here. You roll up the dough on the pin, and then you very gently push the dough into the sides with your fingers. I'm then using clean kitchen shears to trim off any excess of dough. I'm keeping about an inch, maybe an inch and a half of overhang, and this is so I can create those beautiful crimped edges that you often see in pies. Here's how you begin to crimp. First, you have to roll the excess dough underneath the edge of the pie. There will be about an inch of crust here. To crimp the edges, take your pointer finger and thumb on your non-dominant hand and push your thumb on your dominant hand into that space. I'm right-handed, so you can see my right thumb filling the space between the fingers on my left hand. Here's the most important tip of all when it comes to pie. After it has been crimped, wrap the pie and chill for at least 1 hour in the fridge. This will help the dough with shrinking, but it'll also help with flakiness. And yes, this is one time where flakiness is a very, very good thing. Now, this entire time we've been talking about controlling the temperature of the ingredients. Well, there's a reason for that. We don't want the butter to melt until it gets to the oven. And once it gets to the oven, that butter is going to melt and produce steam. That steam is going to cause these layers to rise and have a beautiful flaky crust. Now, it is time to control that rising by doing something called docking, which you can see here. I'm creating tons of little holes in the bottom of the crust, and this is going to help control that steam so the bottom doesn't puff up too much. That's also why I used a giant sheet of parchment paper filled with probably 3 to 4 cups of dried beans, and I really pushed those beans down because it's going to weigh down the pie. This crust cooked at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. I then carefully lifted the corners of the parchment paper to remove the beans and then continued to cook the pie crust for another 12 minutes. I didn't fully cook this pie crust because I'm going to be adding apple pie filling and it's going to continue to cook. The pie on the right, however, is deep golden brown because that pie crust is finished cooking. That is going to be filled with a beautiful custard. The question now, however, is who won this beautiful pie? Congratulations, Elise! It's time for me to fill this pie crust with apple filling and continue baking until bubbly. Be sure to comment below with what you found most helpful. And if you have any questions, be sure to message me on Instagram. Thanks for watching.